how you feel about yourself depends on who's around you. You know, if you have drug dealers as friends, there's a good chance that you're going to feel really bad about yourself when you don't join in to smoke with them. If you have friends who are watching pornography and they keep pushing you and you don't want to join them, they're going to make you feel bad and incompetent about yourself. They're not being friendly, that you're not really true friends. If you're going to, say, with your friends to church and they're reading the Bible and you keep cracking ridiculous jokes about Jesus, the churchgoers, then they're going to make you feel bad, or you're going to make them feel bad. So in many ways, your value depends on who you hang out with and the emotions they create inside you. Okay? I like when I read the dialogues of Plato. I really like when I read Jean-Paul Sartre. I really enjoy when I read some Sufi literature. They make me feel incompetent. They make me feel bad, and I like it. There is a sense of humility in that. That Amir, yes, you walked to the classroom, you were arrogant, you were pompous, you were hubris. Now you sit in your office and you read this verse, and it calms you down. It makes you feel bad. You're not the center of the universe. Just because 5 people listen to you, pay you attention, it doesn't mean anything. You know, and it takes me back to the book of Job. You're a maggot. You mean nothing. You're irrelevant. You're insignificant. And because of my temperament and because of my background and because of certain emotions I like to entertain, I like those companions. You know, if you know you have a companion who likes to dominate, who doesn't enjoy fairness, and they keep kind of devaluing you, abusing you in certain ways, there is going to come a point where if you like this person a lot, you're going to adopt his or her philosophy of life, which is they are a peer, superior to you, and you want to kind of ascend. You want to climb this ladder to be like them. But until then, they will always have the power to make you feel bad. Okay? So whenever they say, "Where is my food?" Okay. Well, once again, you're going to be in the presence of certain emotions that are created inside you. Kendra, you've been home all day. Why didn't you make food? Well, you were working on your application for jobs. You were talking to your mom who was not feeling well. You were doing shopping. You were cleaning the house. Maybe you were sick in bed. But he overlooks all of those things, and the only thing he demands is, "Where is my food?" And then all of a sudden, you have to overcome perhaps your own illness, physical illness, that you have a flu. And then you examine your position. You begin to doubt and have all sorts of conflicts. I think it's much better for you to have emotions that are created inside you by someone like Socrates or Plato or Jesus Christ than a friend of yours who happens to be 30. And a 30-year-old human being is uneducated. It doesn't mean if they've gone to Yale. That means nothing. Have they been touched, tested, examined by life? Have they come to realize that despite having a PhD, they are a complete failure? Have they summoned up the courage to kind of fix the certain parts inside them that book reading doesn't do? That's how people are tested and become educated. If you're around those people, it'll be good. Feel bad about yourself. And then ask for their help. You know. So when, for example, I ask you, what parts of yourself do you not like? Okay. It means, has your friend from 30 years ago said something to you? Is it your mom that's making you feel bad about yourself? Okay. Is it certain habitual ways of thinking? You know, and remember, some people are temperamentally self-defeatists. In other words, they have a certain temperament that they always put themselves down. It doesn't mean it's bad. You know, I mean, people like Soren Kierkegaard, he's an introvert. He hates himself. but it becomes an inspiration for him to write, to observe, to think, to reflect. Let me kind of put this in a different way. It's an analogy I used some weeks ago in this class in relation to Rebecca. If you go out with a 35-year-old man who doesn't have a job, perhaps is a bit insecure, and doesn't come from a healthy culture, doesn't have a healthy background, they will make you feel bad about yourself. That's the only way they can have dominance in life. Now, if, for example, you were to go out with me, and it's an analogy, an example, it's not real. If you were to go out with me, well, I'm twice your age. I don't have many of the needs that a 35-year-old man may have, okay? Which means, for the most part, I'm going to demand a hell of a lot from you. I don't want you to hang out with your loser friends. You can't drink. You can't smoke. You can't engage in ridiculous conversations. And every time you do, once I give you a certain look, that's going to make you feel bad about yourself and the kind of emotional space you've occupied that allows you to kind of be casual and nonchalant with me. And I think that's a good way of being because it pushes you to mature and to think and to examine your place in life. And if you're, say, 30, if you hang out with me for the next 5 or 6 years, by the time you're 35, you will know exactly. I mean, right now you have the option of going out with about 3 billion men. Out of 3 billion, maybe you'll date 100,000 of them. If you and I just hang out, your circle, your options will shrink to maybe 10. It's difficult, but it's also profoundly a privileged position. Because you look at a lot of people as simply trash. They're wasting your time. You're investing your energies in all the wrong places, and you will refrain and abstain from doing those things. So if I was to make you feel bad about yourself, it's actually good for you. I mean, it'll be difficult to live with the conflict for a while, the depression, the despair. But if you're patient enough to live in this darkness and confusion and self-hatred for about 5 or 6 or 10 years, you will know how to swim in this ocean of sadness for the rest of your life. I mean, that's one of the things about joy. I don't think joy is about being happy. Joy is about realizing that you're miserable, the human condition is miserable, that your life is nothing but continuous struggle and suffering. From desire to satisfaction to desire again, and that's struggle, that's misery. But you know how things work and you're okay with it. And it's kind of like Rembrandt. You're a painter, but it's rooted in a good amount of psychological darkness. So I'm going to stop rambling and again ask, what parts of yourself do you hate? You don't need to say. Any other questions or comments before we move into something else, or perhaps the same thing in a different way? David? Ricardo? Sarah? What would you guys do if Kendra was here? You would have no questions, nothing to ask. Kendra?
Okay, I think I have
Sure.
I think sometimes in social situations, that's one place where, like, afterwards, I'm like, why couldn't I be more?
Yes. So you're like
That's
amongst
very
these, look at them, these fun group of people, and they're dancing and talking about this and that, and you guys are all friends, and so you start dancing and smoking and drinking and dancing and smoking and drinking and engaging like
Okay.
stupid.
Social situation.
No, that's it. How about
Like
just
having a conversation?
yeah, conversation?
between-
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things. First, are you friends with them or you're slowly becoming friends? Because remember, if you're not that close with them and it's 4 against 1, well, you want to fit in. And to fit in, you're going to wear masks that will allow you to be liked by these people. You know, and once they like you, they say, oh, that was a beautiful story. Now, you know that's a garbage story. But because you want to fit in, you want to be liked, these people have enough power to kind of make you feel bad about yourself, that you're kind of sitting over there by yourself, isolated, you look gloomy, you look sad, you're filled with anger, and you want to have some friendships. You know, there could potentially be that. And then you spend like 5 hours with them. You buy donuts for them, you buy coffee for them, even though you hate them, dislike them profoundly, all because you want to be liked. And then 5 hours later, you all decide to go home. And as you walk in, you say, why? Why do I want to be liked by Sarah, who's not even 20? By David, who just turned 19? By Ricardo, who doesn't ever have anything to say about anything? By Rebecca. Why? And then you begin to dislike what you've done, hate what you've done. The only remedy to that is do what Krishnamurti used to do. This is the Indian philosopher sage, which is every year, for about half a year, 6 months, lock yourself in a room. Be around no one. Or perhaps you can be around people, just occupy your time with reading books, listening to audio lectures, going to the wild and walking. Spend a good amount of time by yourself, where the only person that you need to please is you. And the way you please yourself is by being around people like Socrates and his ideas. And these people eventually become irrelevant. And should you want to gather with them, you will have enough force inside you to navigate the conversation, to guide where the conversation needs to go. It doesn't mean that you won't tell a joke, you will, just to kind of break the ice. But then you say, what is the difference between laughter and weeping? Because remember, laughter is energy going out, weeping, energy going in. Weeping is an internal thing, whereas laughter is an external thing. And all of a sudden, these people who said, like, what does that mean? What does it mean that we are laughing? Then you say, well, you know, and you kind of create ridiculous stories like, I was talking to my father or my mother or a cancer patient whom I visited yesterday. And they said to me that when they were young, they would read the Gospels all the time, and they were wondering why Jesus never laughed in any of the 4 Gospels. And then you say, you know, the 5 of us have been sitting here for the past 4 hours and we've been laughing. We've been laughing and having a great time. Well, why isn't it that for 3 years, at least that's the time period of Jesus in the Gospels, around people, he did not laugh a single time? Why? What is it about this man that all of us worship, consider to be wise? Why is it that he never smiled? Is there nothing funny about life? Are human beings not supposed to enjoy what little time they have on earth? Must we always be serious? Is human condition really that miserable, that sorrowful, that we always need to be engaged in reflection? Is it true what he said, that human beings at their innermost core, we're always alone and isolated and lonely? Is there no room in human life for fun and laughter? Just turning off your brain? You know. And depending on who you're hanging out with and how ready they are to receive, such conversations, you'll either be greeted well, and all of you will engage in having a very serious conversation, and you will all enjoy the conversation. It doesn't mean that you won't feel anger, confusion, sadness, but what is interesting, you are just engaged, either verbally, emotionally, or intellectually. You're just talking about the stuff, despite being very miserable. So you can look at this kind of poverty that you see inside yourself in a different way. I open the fridge and I realize, well, before I open the fridge, I say, I want to have some cereal for dinner. Cheerios and milk and some bananas on the top, okay? I open the fridge and there is no milk. Now, whether the desire to have cereal came from an advertisement on TV, listening to music and all of a sudden there's an advertisement on Spotify, okay? Whether I saw someone in a restaurant eating cereal, it doesn't really matter how I was inspired to eat cereal. I'm at a place where that now occupies and consumes me. I want to have cereal. I open the fridge and there is no milk. Well, that's poverty, because I can't satisfy my desire. So what do? I say, let me get in my car, go down the hill and get some milk. Now, if I don't have a car, I only have a bike, that's going to be a problem, because down the hill is really, really difficult. Up the hill is even more difficult. Okay. Do I have money? Okay. Now, if I can satisfy that poverty, going down the hill, grabbing the milk, coming up, then I can satisfy my desire, which is I now have milk for my cereal. I'm going to pour some milk in this bowl, put some cereal and drink it or eat it. Okay. Now you see something inside that you don't like. That's poverty. Okay. The question now is, now that you have seen this poverty, do you have the means, the resources to get rid of it, nourish it? If the answer is yes, well, it's actually good that you're able to see it. If on the other hand, you're far too poor to fix this poverty, you're going to have resentment, you're going to be angry, you're going to involve in self-hatred, and then it may actually evolve into despair, and then depression, and then isolation, and then maybe therapy, and then being medicated, and then paralysis for the rest of your life. Okay. If you're around less mature people, there's a good chance you will always be able to fix the poverty that you see inside yourself. If you hang around with mature people and they create poverty inside you, there's a good chance that you won't have the tools for a long, 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 long time. It's one thing for you to realize you don't have socks, but for someone to tell you, like someone like Jesus Christ, to tell you that, Kendra, you have the kingdom of God inside you. And he keeps telling you that over and over and over again. Or someone like Socrates to tell you, you are Pegasus. You are the winged horse that can fly all the way to the sun. Or Plato, saying that you have the potential of having the philosopher king component inside you. Well, you know, if you want to be Pegasus, if that is your inspiration, well, first you have to kind of see where your wings are. Then you have to flap them. Then you have to experience yourself being off ground. Then you have to deal with the confusion and the anxiety and the fear. I mean, that's a lot of poverty you're going through. Okay? If the poverty is you just haven't cooked dinner for your man or your woman, well, geez, just pack up your stuff, go to Zachary's and eat pizza together and engage in some ridiculous conversation. So the more profound, the more meaningful your poverty, the less you're able to remedy it, and should you rise to remedy it, the longer it's going to take. I don't know how many of you in this class enjoy such literature. There is a book that came out in the 1980s, and Kendra probably can guess what book I'm going to say. The book is called Daughter of Fire. It's about this woman, her name is Irina Tweedy. The title of the book is Daughter of Fire. Rebecca, write that down because you may enjoy it. Daughter, D-E-W-T-R, of fire. A daughter of fire. Now, she is half German, half Russian, and half another thing. She has three halves. Now, she comes from an environment that gave her religious language, to some extent religious emotions, to some extent religious desires and pursuits. At the age of 50, she comes to realize that, her first marriage didn't work out too well. They ended in divorce. Second marriage, the husband died. And death is a funny thing because it pushes you into places you usually don't want to go, where everything about your life gets examined rigorously. And you begin to hate yourself and how you've lived your life. So she says, maybe I should go to India. My friend has gone to India. She's run into this man whose name is Bhai Sahib. And apparently he has a good amount of wisdom and he can train me. So she goes to India thinking that she's going to be spiritually trained in a particular way. Okay. So she has her how-to-do list. She goes to India and she spends about 10 years with this man almost. He makes her feel like crap on a daily basis. The book is about 1,000 pages. You can buy the book for about $20. It's well worth your money, okay? If you want to know how things work, how difficult and horrific of a time you will have trying to kind of mature and evolve, okay? How love works, how conflict works, how despair and depression work. Okay. Now this man injects a good amount of his own emotions into her. He expects things from this woman that she just can't deliver. He keeps making her feel bad, but in making her feel bad, and because she loves him so desperately, she struggles to please him. And after 10 years, writing a book that's about almost 1,000 pages, she becomes a teacher of wisdom in her own particular way. And she has her own specific disciples or students who are willing to receive her well and listen to her relatively decently. Okay. So again, if you're working with someone like Bhai Sahib or Jesus Christ or Socrates, it's going to take you a long time for you to overcome some of the deficiencies you see inside yourself. If it's your companion, the 30-year-old, just give it 6 months. But going back to your question as to why you do engage in ridiculous conversations, first, they are easy. Second, there is so much pleasure to be had in just entertainment, that casual, that has no depth. I mean, imagine when you like go to San Francisco and you want to dip into the ocean. Well, there's nothing wrong if you can walk into the water and your feet is touching the ground, the sand. It's beautiful. There's no fear there. Now, imagine if you're foolish enough to say, I want to like go a bit further. And all of a sudden you say, well, you cannot go down. You say, well, I want to see if I can still touch the ground, the sand. And you go in a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, you can't touch the sand. And all of a sudden fear overcomes you. And you come up. And you kind of look around and you say, wow, you're in the middle of the ocean. I think most people are like walking on sand. And then you kind of just put your toe in. And then maybe you go in ankle deep, maybe a knee deep, maybe a waist deep, maybe a chest deep. But you will encounter some people who will take you in the middle of the waters and your feet can't reach the bottom. Now you have two things going on. When fear overcomes you, you feel alive. There's a good amount of fright in it, but you feel alive. You're really struggling to preserve your life. When you're by the shore or knee deep, you have control over your life. It's casual. You can be foolish. You can be stupid. There is no self-reflection. In the middle of the ocean, you're going to say, why did I do that? What's wrong with me? Is my life going to end? Did I live it to the fullest? And it's always dangerous to be around or in a group where people are serious. Remember, sloth happens to be one of the 7 deadly sins. It's good to be lazy. There is no responsibility there. There is no reflection there. You don't see an image of yourself. That demands too much from you. You enjoy being casual, just laying and watching TV. You know, sometimes I lay and watch TV, but I can't be at peace because the things I'm watching, they're not really worth my time. I'm no longer 20. I always think about how much time I have left and how many things I still need to do. You know, I laugh, for example, when the movie happens to be funny. But right next to the laughter, there is also this reflective aspect of me that says, what the hell are you doing? Why do you want to live your life through the comedies of other people? Go make your own comedy. Go write a paragraph about how tragic your life is, and it's a really funny thing. To wake up in the morning, do all these things, and before you're about to close your eyes and go to sleep, you kind of review your day's work and you say, man, it's really, really a joke. I did all these things and yet they mean nothing. And if you become contaminated with that, now remember, one of the things that Socrates used to say about himself is that he's a gadfly. He's like this tiny little insect with huge fangs that sits on you. And you know, when you have like a mosquito sitting on you, they begin to tickle you and you laugh, oh, don't do that, don't do that. And all of a sudden they put their fang in your meat, in your body. Okay? And all of a sudden the giggles change into a scream and a cry. That's what Socrates does. And when he injects this pain inside you, you jump. And in jumping, you experience your wings. For the first time, you realize you can in fact, fly. But you're not going to be up in the air for too long. You're going to descend. You're going to come down. Now you have two Kendras. A Kendra that can walk and a Kendra that can fly. A Kendra that can walk sees everything as big and important and essential to life. A Kendra that can fly looks down, sees life as insignificant, pathetic, and small. And you have no choice but to live in two worlds. The world of Caesar, that's pathetic, important, necessary, but pathetic nevertheless. And the world of God, where you can fly, see things clearly, have insights. Now, you have the lion that needs to survive in the world of Caesar. You have the lamb, the innocence, the purity, the meekness, okay, that was created by Socrates. It's going to take you a long time so that the lion and the lamb can live together harmoniously. Okay, because initially this lamb wants to devour the lion. Money is unimportant. Education is unimportant. Getting a job is unimportant. Getting married is unimportant. Sex is unimportant. Fun is unimportant. The truth is, all these components that the lamb sees as unimportant, they have an significant importance in our life. Without them, you'll be paralyzed. The lion, on the other hand, every time the lamb comes up and says, humility, charity, wisdom, the lion wants to devour it. No. In the world of Caesar, you don't need humility. You need aggression. You need domination. You need pride. You need ego. Okay? Now, these two worlds are going to collide. Okay? Now, it is so difficult, these two worlds, to come together harmoniously, that you have someone like Jesus, who leaves Nazareth at the age of 12. He disappears for 18 years. And he comes back. Only to realize later on, it wasn't really worth coming back. Or you have Moses, who comes back after spending 40 years in the desert. And then he says, it wasn't really worth coming back. Or Lao Tzu. So maybe I should just leave altogether. This wasn't really worth it. Okay. So, if your question has to do with, there is Kendra, the walking woman, there is Kendra, the flying woman. Sometimes Kendra grounds herself, walks into communities of people who are walking but never flying. And you know what happens when you walk into a community where people have only walked? They talk about the things that they have seen, touched, smelled, and tasted. You, on the other hand, you have been above and you have seen things. There is this beautiful story by the Sufis. These are like the mystics or the inner philosophers of the Islamic tradition. They came to realize that there is this wall in their town, and it's very difficult to climb this wall and jump over it. Only once in a while do you have courageous souls out there who try, and most of them fail miserably. Okay? To their surprise, there's this young man who is very close to the top. And they want to see, if he gets a glimpse of all the things that live on the other side, but what lives there? So they tie a rope around his ankle, okay? And they say when he gets a glimpse of it, pull him back. And then they can ask him questions. Well, first, no one climbs this wall, because experience has revealed that it almost ends up in failure, so why even try? So people kind of just walk around, stand around, and once in a while they see the wall, but they never really give too much thinking about it, okay? This man gets really, really high. He grabs the top of the wall, looks over, he is pulled down. and people bombard him with questions. He doesn't say a single word because he knows what he has seen, first of all, will not fit language. Second, even if it did, people would not receive him well. Your difficulty, the difficulty with your question is the following. Maybe initially you say to yourself, I'm just going to be here, live amongst them, but say nothing. And you can do that for the first 5-10 minutes. But all of a sudden the pressure of the herd overtakes. You say, Kendra, you're sitting here and they keep looking at you. You know, it's kind of like sometimes I tease David and Ricardo, maybe even Sarah sometimes, do you have anything to say? I mean, that's a lot of pressure. First, it's coming from a 60-year-old man. Second, it's a classroom. Third, this is not taking place in private. They're sitting amongst like 40 people. And every time you ask, do you have any questions? He won't even say no. And imagine how he feels when other people look at him. You know, that's a lot of pressure. And eventually, out of desperation, he'll say, I have a question. Say, yeah, what is it? Now, I am anticipating after like 10 weeks, it's going to be a profoundly deep philosophical question. What time is a semester? I mean, when is a semester over? What the hell? You've sat here for 10 weeks, and I'm guessing that you're going to ask a question that's relevant to all the things they've talked about. And your question is, when is the semester over? And then if I happen to be in a bad mood, I'm just going to make fun of you and the questions you've asked, making you even feel worse about yourself. So to conclude my rambling, my recommendation is always be around dumb, dim-witted, stupid, foolish people. They will always tell you how intelligent you are, how good-looking you are, how perfect you are. You will always engage in conversations that will never have any depth. You will always engage in the pleasures of the body, but never of the mind. And that is called America. Anyone? We have like 5 minutes. Sarah?
You still never went into the stages of love last time after love.
Now you ask? You're absolutely right. I didn't go through the stages of love, but should things go okay, or be okay on Thursday, we will continue with the stages of love. Good, thank you. Rebecca? David? Ricardo? Sofro, yes, of course. Kendra? You know, Sarah, since you have 5 minutes, let me just kind of respond to your statement in a very crude and rushed fashion, if I may. May I? It's always nice to love somebody for their body. And their body, I don't just mean limited to their flesh. The car that they have, the money that they make, the apartment that they rent, the coffee maker that they have, the restaurants that they take you. Don't ever look to them for falling in love with their mind, you'll be gravely disappointed. Don't ever sit with them and wonder if the both of you could fall in love with each other's souls. That also will never happen. And if you've always been addicted to falling in love with somebody's body, you'll find it very difficult to be attracted to somebody's mind and knowing how to love it properly. And God forbid, if something inside you says, he or she has a soul, be in love with that. You won't have the proper tools to fall in love with that. Lots of confusion, lots of anger. There's a good chance you will romanticize both the intellect and the soul. You will want to privatize that individual all to yourself the way you privatize when you love their body. Because the problem with loving someone for their mind is that their mind does not belong to you. It goes to places where you don't occupy. So they become, to some extent, a person for the people. If God forbid you fall in love with someone's soul, their soul don't belong to you either. Their body simply becomes a vehicle that carries their mind and their soul, and their mind basically becomes a vehicle through which their soul is expressed. And that's beyond your capacity to love. That's why most often great philosophers and sages, they never marry. And even if they do, they don't really belong to their wives or husbands.